Hi everyone, here Ulysses Lavaroni for Cyclical Dreams. Today we have the pleasure to be with Maurice Gallagher from Scotland, and it's a pleasure for us to say welcome, Maurice.
Thank you, Ulysses. It's a massive pleasure for me to be talking to you.
Great. So we want to know more about you. You are going to release a very nice album on Cyclical Dreams called A Strange Uncertain Light. And it's about your interesting grüm project. And well, the first question is about how do you arrive to music? How music arrives to you? What happened then, and how was your environment influences and everything that leads you to this point?
Well, like a lot of people, I started off listening to the Berlin School in the 70s with the classic Tangerine Dream and Klaus Schulze. I was particularly fond of Klaus Schulze and his ability to perform live concerts of very long pieces on his own. I always found that Tangerine Dream, their music was more intricate because Klaus had to move a lot of things on his own, so there was slower development, and I must say I enjoyed that more. So I listened to a lot of progressive rock as well, but I've never been particularly proficient in playing my music. So it actually took me until I was almost 40 before I started. And I started when I got my first iMac, which was when the iMacs first came out, the beautiful 5-color iMacs where they had the built-in plastic cases. And the music, I started to investigate a piece of software called Reactor, which was made by Native Instruments. And it was basically a modular synth in all but name. You could build anything, any kind of synthesizer, any kind of effect, and so on. And so I started with that. And to be honest, I have never owned a hardware synthesizer. All my work has been done inside a computer. And I've progressed since the age of 40 to now 20 years later. And I still use nothing but software. A lot of hardware controllers, but it's all software that I use. And the music comes to me, strangely enough, I'll either be working with sequences, in which case it tends to be fairly traditional. The music tends to follow a path that lovers of Berlin School would recognise. But I'm also very interested in sound and sonic manipulation. And so a lot of my work, at least half of my work starts with a sound. And I'll be messing about with a synthesizer and I'll come across a preset, or I'll develop something, and the sound itself will then spark the direction of the piece of music. And so I very rarely sit down, although this album is an exception, I very rarely sit down and try to compose in a particular style. It really is dependent on the first sound that I play that catches my attention, that I feel that I can develop it. There are 1 or 2 tracks on the album. I think the second track, which was based around a sound that I found. Ossification, I think the name of the track is. And that was based around a sound that I found, and I developed that sound until I had a full piece. Whereas the other pieces on the album are based more around sequencer work that I wanted to showcase. I have very different paths of music that I follow. I do a lot of modular work, again, virtual modular, but I spend an awful lot of time creating modular pieces, although there are not very many on this album, because I wanted particularly to showcase my Berlin School sequencer style music, because I thought that's going to be a better fit for the public that perhaps would be interested in Cyclical Dreams. To be honest, I sit down every day, and most days I'll spend 4 or 5 hours in front of a computer creating things, whether it's a modular patch, whether it's a sequencer, whether I'm just creating new sounds, just so that I can use them later on in a more traditional piece. But most of my waking hours where I'm not working is spent working on music. It has become more than a hobby. It become almost a drug to me.
Oh, that's great. So and it's clearly appreciable on your work. There's a lot of sound development and in many textures and also in the sequences. And well, the second one, I want to go more specific with this strange and certain light. Well, you told it before. It's about create a sound. So did you have different moments? Like perhaps it happens with me. I take some time to design sound
Yes.
because it's very labor intensive. And
Yes.
so you put all your brain to design things and in a complex way, and then let stay and go other day and
Mm-hmm.
let's compose music. How is your workflow about this album, especially?
Well, this was possibly the most intensive period that I've ever had, because it's the first time I've been commissioned to produce a series of pieces. So I had to think very hard about what the arc of the story was going to be, and how to develop the fast pieces, integrate with the slow pieces, generate lots of different sound fields in which to allow the music to breathe. And it's the hardest I've ever worked in terms of sound development, in terms of trying to take a piece and almost filter out the bits that didn't quite work. And so possibly, it's not absolutely perfect, but it's as close to perfection, I think, as I've ever achieved, simply because I don't normally spend so much time on each track. And I spent a lot of time on each track this time to try and get it to the best that I could make it. And that also includes the mastering sound, the effects and so on, trying to get it as clear and clean as possible. So the way that I tend to work is I'll sit down and I'll start with an idea, and some of the pieces will come within 2 hours. I can create a 7 or 8 minute piece within 2 hours that's very coherent, and other pieces will take me weeks until I'm happy. The feeling. Some pieces just work right away, and other pieces, that there's a gem in there if only you could polish it sufficiently. And so that's where I tried to make it as rhythmic as possible. I tried to make it as melodic as possible, and I tried to make it as varied as possible. But the majority of the pieces are Berlin School type sequencer-led pieces with 2 or 3, if you like, palette cleansers to take away the energy and allow you to relax a little bit before the next driving sequence comes along. But to be honest, it really is just a case of sitting down and doing what you feel is necessary at the time. I'm not a composer as such. I'm very much a reactor to the music. If I generate a sequence, for example, I'll play that sequence. You probably experienced that yourself. Play that sequence for hours, trying to develop it, trying to get it just right, trying to create variations on a theme, trying to create a little bit of counterpoint that would allow you to develop it even further. And so that's what I do a lot of the time. And to anyone listening to my working methods, they would be bored silly, because it's constant repetition and just trying to get that gem as polished as possible. So I can't claim to have any magical technique. I like the sounds, and I copy as much as I can. And I'm also very incompetent. I don't have a lot of music theory and musical ability, so I try to copy themes from great pieces of the past and fail miserably. I can't get the notes quite right. I can't get the tempo quite right. And as a result, I create something that's much more unique to me because I'm not able. A lot of artists are able to copy and copy extremely well and enhance almost the classics. I'm totally useless at that. But I can take bits and pieces and mold them together into something that's a bit more of my taste. I would love to be like that. I would love to be able to do Klaus Schulze or to do Tangerine Dream, but I've never managed it.
It's great. It's go for your own is the best that you can do.
Well, I think so, yeah. But you mean, like everyone else, you are influenced by the things you've heard in the past. And you are influenced by the sounds that you love. And you know, if you hear a particular bass sound or a particular pad sound, it inspires you.
Absolutely, and all about art is like this. It's a question of influences and self processing.
Yes,
there's no art without influences. We
absolutely.
we need to get inspired about the artwork, and this is one of the most beautiful things. I think the very famous Berlin School were inspired by minimalist music, like I don't know, Terry Riley inspired.
Yes, yep. Yes, and also they were at the cutting edge. They were creating something new because the technology was new and no one knew how to use it. Whereas now we are kind of standing on their shoulders. We know how sequencers work. We know how synthesizers work. And it's very easy to put something together these days that's relatively cheap and very high quality. So we're very lucky. It's a great time to be alive. So in terms of music, anyway.
Create interesting combinations, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting combination, and I think you did it.
I'm really glad you think that, you know, because I did put a lot into it, and I was concerned, and I did spend a lot of time trying to make it as good as I could possibly make it. But I am really proud of it. I really feel that it was the best work that I have done as a whole, as a full album's worth. I've done tracks that are as good and probably better than the tracks that are on this album, but I've never put out an album that was quite as coherent as this one, certainly to my ears.
Yes,
and the people that I played it to have enjoyed it.
Have a great climate. So it's very atmospheric. When you saw the cover art, it's like, okay, there's something about a great atmosphere that surrounds the work. Okay, Maurice, it was very great to meet you, and we are very happy to release your very interesting work in Cyclical Dreams label. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you will continue doing interesting things.
Thank you, Ulysses. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.